July 5th Village Board regular meeting. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the Republic, and a nation, God, liberty and
Trustee Levin,
here.
Trustee Quezada,
Present.
and Mayor Garrity.
Present.
Do you have any mayors and trustees announcements?
I believe we do. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I just want to thank our community, our police department, fire department, our parks, recreation, pretty much everybody that was involved on 4th of July celebration on July 3rd. It was a great event. Music was awesome. It was actually, for some reason, and someone may confirm this at some point, there was a lot more people this year than previous years. It could have been just me that I couldn't go through the paths because there wasn't any really a path, but it was a great success. So thank you to everyone that actually participated and worked on village government and town government. So thank you very much.
Yes, it really was a terrific event. Thank you to all who made it happen. I will put on my documentary and discussion series hat for a moment, since we don't have too many announcements this evening, and remind everyone to join us Thursday, July 20th. This month we will be revisiting the ongoing theme that we have each season this year, addressing deconstructing racism. And you may be familiar with this documentary. It's been very well received and highly viewed in the last year or so. It's called 13th, referring to the 13th Amendment. It's a really impressive group on the panel. Please join us. It's free. Always, it's free. It's at the Ossining Public Library beginning at 6:30 on Thursday, July 20th. And I'll just call to folks' attention that the July 4th musical selection is just the first in a summer-long music concert series that the town organizes. It's at Lewis Engle Park, which is a town park in the village. Things as confusing as possible, but it's really always a wonderful event. And from now on, it'll be Fridays through the rest of the summer. There'll be live music, and you can learn more about it on the Town of Ossining website. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Into administrative reports, and we'll begin with interim village manager Paul Frioli.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. I appreciate the sentiment relayed by Trustee Quezada regarding the fireworks, and I will say that I was there. It was yet again another beautiful event, and I think for the first year in a while we had no threat of weather, and it was really a wonderful event to see the community out there. So I wanted to take this time to thank all the behind-the-scenes folks that led the charge, particularly the Ossining Police Department, Town of Ossining, Rec Village DPW, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It goes off without a hitch every year, it seems, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind it, and that's nice to see that we have it so down pat. And I'm sure, although we don't measure the crowds, I think this had to be a record year. So I'll see what the police chief says about that in his report. But it was really something to see. I enjoy it every year. I know a lot of people do. In the agenda tonight, we have two resolutions that Corporation Council is going to go over in a little more detail, so we appreciate your consideration of executing those in advance to allow us to continue with our code enforcement efforts. And that is it for me this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
On to Corporation Council, Stuart Kahan.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. As interim village manager Frioli indicated, there are a number of resolutions on tonight, two of which specifically relate to the continued use of council with regard to our code enforcement efforts. And they relate specifically to Deputy Corporation Counsel Bill Hamilton. One of the resolutions is to accept his resignation, which was effective the 30th of June. The second is a brief retainer agreement between the village and Hamilton Law Firm, LLP, which is Mr. Bill Hamilton's new office, for a period of 3 months. And during that period, he will continue to do what he has done up to this point, which is handle code enforcement activities as well as the parking ticket violations in the Justice Court. But again, that will go until the 30th. There has already been a discussion with Mr. Hamilton regarding the retainer agreement, and with regard to the draft, he has already approved it, so we can move forward with that. And that will provide, as I said, continuity as we continue to look at the Corporation Counsel Office, and specifically Deputy Corporation Counsels, in terms of the work that's being done and division of assignments in that regard. There are also two other resolutions on tonight with regard to cabaret licenses, one for the Boathouse and one for Tierras Tropicales. And while these are somewhat later in the season than we usually have those particular applications, in the case of Tierras Tropicales, it was under a new name, which required a new license, alcohol license from the state, plus permission from the landlord. And in the case of the Boathouse, there were other circumstances relating to inspections which had to be clarified and taken care of. Both of those are now done, and we would urge the board to approve both of those applications. Finally, as the board is well aware, we've been working very hard with the building department to proceed with code enforcement. We have the new ordinance, which is now in effect, and can be found on the village's website. If one goes to the code and they go under new laws, it will be there as Law 3 of 2017. One of the aspects of that law relates to operating permits and requirements for inspections for operating permits. We've received some cooperation from property owners to get those operating permits. We have not received all the cooperation we might like. We will be sending out reminder letters to get those operating permits done. It's important to note that those operating permit inspections are mandated by the state of New York, and we are simply complying with the state requirements in that regard. Those operating permit inspections will be similar to the fire inspections which are required. So effectively you have completed your operating permit inspection, you've completed your fire inspection. But the operating permits are necessary, and those who have not yet been in contact with the building department to schedule those, we would urge you to do so as soon as possible so that we can get those taken care of and move on with the other aspects of code enforcement that are being undertaken by the department. Thanks.
Corporation Counsel, I will pick up on what your comments about the operating agreement, because it's a little bit, it's new for us to be
Right.
taking such a proactive role in going through this process, though it is something that is required by New York State. So I think it came as a surprise to a number of the businesses
Right.
that received it. They may have thought that they had suddenly done something wrong, but in actuality, it's just that we're being more proactive and following through on this bit of the law.
Right, and what we're doing is when I know when the building department gets calls, that's how it's explained to them. And that's why we're going to just be sending out reminder letters, just to advise them that, to please contact the office so that those can be scheduled, and we, have the inspectors ready to go out and start doing those.
And it wasn't all businesses, it was just certain businesses that were likely to fall into the categories that would be covered by the operating.
Places of public assembly, I believe, with 100 or more, certain places that had certain hazardous chemicals. That's true. It's not, and in fact, for those, some businesses received letters for operating permit inspections. They called up and inquired whether they were covered. It turned out they were not, and they were immediately told by the building department, basically take the letter and throw it away. It doesn't refer to you. And that helps our record keeping, because we
Great.
know the next time around, we don't have to send a letter to one of those businesses.
It's when you're talking about dozens, not hundreds of businesses that fall into this potential
I
category.
believe the total number, Mayor, was no more than 60 within the entire village.
Great. Thank you very much for that
Sure.
clarification. Madam Clerk?
Move on to Police Chief Kevin Sylvester.
Good evening. We are equally glad that fireworks went off without any major incidents. Lucky to be able to get away with that this year. A couple of events coming up. On Friday night, we have Angels in the Outfield. It's going to be our next evolution of Movies in the Park. That'll be Friday night at Veterans Park on Narragansett Avenue. We'll be there probably around 7:30. Movie should kick off around 8:30. It all depends on sundown. Second to that, we'll be preparing next week. We found out today we'll have a site visit from New York State Department of Criminal Justice Services as a periodic inspection for accreditation procedures. So very exciting stuff going on in the OPD. That's all we've got for this week.
They just spring that on you, the accreditation procedure inspection?
Apparently it was a change. Ordinarily it's every 4 years. They've added site visits in the interim between the two so that they can make sure that you're not just spooling up every 4 years to do accreditation. So it's, you know, they'd let us know they were coming a few weeks ago, but we just found out today that they'll be here Wednesday. So we'll be ready.
I'm sure you will. Thank you.
We'll move on to organizational announcements. Is there anyone who has an organizational announcement?
An organizational announcement would be if there's a nonprofit or a community group organization, you want to invite everybody to show up to your fundraiser or your activity, that would be an organizational announcement. If you have,
Yeah.
oh, great, you are actually on the agenda as part of continuing business, so we'll be getting to you in a little while. So glad you're here. Thank you.
About village board resolutions? Comments on that? That will move into the adoption. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin hereby approves the minutes of the June 21st, 2017 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
Second.
On the board, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm going,
Oh.
I have to abstain. I actually,
I was gonna say, was
Was
everybody
not-
here for that?
no, I was not here for that part of the meeting, actually.
So then can we hold this off until next week?
Should have
I'd
written a
ask that
note.
we put that off till next week, then,
That's
please.
fine.
Thank you.
I think it's not a big deal.
Table? Okay. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin hereby approves the voucher detail report dated July 5th, 2017, the amount of $429,156.94. Do I have a motion?
Second.
On the board, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolved that upon the recommendation of the Fire Chief, Frank Armento, Austin, New York, was elected an active member of Hollowhoes Number 5 for interior firefighting at their regular meeting. Do you have a motion?
So move.
Second.
On the board, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolved that upon the recommendation of the Fire Chief, Cornelius Blah, Austin, New York, was elected an active member of the Cataract Hose Company Number 2 for interior firefighting at their regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
On the board, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Whereas by resolution dated January 4th, 2017, the Village of Austin Board of Trustees appointed William J. Hamilton as Deputy Corporation Counsel of the Village of Austin for a 2-year term effective January 1st, 2017 through December 31st, 2018. And whereas by letter dated June 22nd, 2017, William J. Hamilton advised of his intention to resign as Deputy Corporation Counsel effective June 30th, 2017. Now be it resolved that the Village of Austin Board of Trustees accepts with regret the resignation of William J. Hamilton as Deputy Corporation Counsel effective June 30th, 2017. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second. I'd actually like
On the
to-
board, yes. You may comment.
I just want to comment, thank you, Stuart, for commenting on it earlier, but just to append to that, that this came actually from Bill Hamilton. So just so it's
Right.
more clear that, that he came to you and I believe to the board indirectly to ask for this and to see if there's some accommodation, make for a change that he wanted. And, you know, thank you for making it happen
Yeah,
so
that-
quickly.
That is correct, Trustee Levin. This was specifically a request made by Mr. Hamilton, correct?
Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Whereas the Village of Austin previously has employed William J. Hamilton as Deputy Corporation Counsel, and whereas the Village of Austin is desirous of continuing that relationship with Hamilton Law Firm PC, of which William J. Hamilton is principal, and whereas William J. Hamilton similarly is desirous of continuing the relationship with the Village of Austin through the Hamilton Law Firm PC, and whereas the Village of Austin Board of Trustees wants to enter into a retainer agreement with Hamilton Law Firm PC effective July 1st, 2017 through September 30th, 2017. Now therefore be resolved that the interim village manager is authorized to execute a retainer agreement with Hamilton Law Firm PC for a fixed fee of $10,925.76, payable in equal monthly installments of $3,641.92, for the terms of July 1st, 2017 through September 30th, 2017. Such retainer agreement subject to review and approval by Corporation Council. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
On the board. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll move into continuing business of the board. Presentation from Westchester Power and an update on Sustainable Westchester program.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. We have some handouts for you.
All righty. We'll try and follow along.
Thanks.
That's our assistant Jasmine, who's helping at the paperwork.
And remind us of your name.
Pardon?
Remind us of your name.
My name is Jenna Amundsen, and I am the Community Outreach Coordinator for Westchester Power and Sustainable Westchester. My first comment is thank you for being a member of Sustainable Westchester. We really appreciate your involvement in the organization. So this is an update on the Westchester Power program. We launched a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, as I'm sure you all recall. And just a little bit about the basics of the program. If you're in a position of explaining it to other people, the Westchester Power program is a bulk purchasing program for electricity, and it stabilizes the rates in Con Ed territory until May of 2018. So that's where we are right now. In the territory, we've done a little bit of analysis, or rather Con Ed has done some of the analysis for us. And if you look at the third page in, I guess, it's what we've accomplished to date. Tons of CO2 avoided, 164,000 tons by going with the clean power. About 500 million kilowatts served in the time period, and actually our sheet says a $1.5 million saved, but it's actually closer to about 2 million saved for the residents and participants in the program right now. We are local. We're in Mount Kisco. We're enjoying serving the participants of the Village of Ossining and elsewhere in the county. Whenever people call our office, it's our pleasure to act as advocates for them and help them understand their energy bill. So if there's something a little peculiar on their bill, or if they just don't understand what is a kilowatt or something like that, we'll take as much time to explain that as we can. The next page we have is what is community choice aggregation. And Westchester Power is a community choice aggregation program. That's a descriptive term that just means a bulk buying group. We are the 7th state in the nation to have this kind of program, just as a reminder. And we started as a pilot last April. Shortly after that, the PSC, the Public Service Commission, so ordered that the rest of the state could participate in this kind of program if they wanted to. We've had several calls over the past few months from other counties who would like to explore having a CCA of their own, and we're happy to help them with guidance and toolkits and things like that. So we're very happy about the progress of the CCA. In the past 5 months or so, we've hired a communications firm, Code Communications in Mount Kisco, to help us get the word out and familiarize everyone with the concept of CCA. And to that end, we have, the next page is a little article that was published in the Westchester County Business Journal. We've had quite a few publications expressing interest in our group lately, and this is just one of them, and I think they've done a really nice job explaining the energy program and what we've done to date. Next page is a graph. It's It's just that. It's a graph showing where we are with the residential rates, followed by the next page showing where we are with commercial rates. And it's a visual representation of the green rate versus the basic rate. And the blue bars represent Con Ed. So as of the end of May, going into June, Con Ed's rates were 8.63 cents per kilowatt hour, and our fixed rate is 7.38 cents for basic and 7.68 for the green power option. So we're doing quite well at that point.
It should be stated that Ossining is the green rate.
Yep. And we're very happy that,
Oh, we are too,
that
but I
way.
just wanted folks to
Yeah.
know that we are the entirely renewable.
the communications firm we hired has helped us begin what we call an empowering green energy campaign. And that's a teaching tool that we're using to go around the county and talk to the villages and cities and towns that are in the program. There's a short list of the publications we've been in to date, and just a little thought about what we can do with the CCA going forward, using the CCA as a thought leadership driver. So in the past couple of months, we had a workshop in our office on microgrids. And a specialist who we've engaged, Michel de la Fontaine, presented the microgrid workshop, and a number of local officials attended that and explored options for microgrid in your own areas. So we're looking forward to, at some point, bringing energy local into our communities so that we can enjoy greater resiliency should another hurricane happen, like Hurricane Sandy. So we're looking forward to bringing energy local. We also are hosting a carbon tax forum, not advocating for or against, just offering a springboard for thoughts on the subject. And the next forum will be in New Rochelle on July 19th, and the last forum will be in Bedford Hills on July 26th. We've also had meetings, going back to the concept of green energy, we've also had discussion, rather, with the American Lung Association, who are very interested in having further talks about green energy and health implications. So, for example, electric cars, with the lower emissions, we're hoping to advance health benefits in conjunction with going green. We continue to look for other enhancements to the CCA. We're currently talking with a few different communities and a few different developers for community solar concepts. So that idea is, if you're in an apartment building, or if you're in a home that has tree coverage and you're not able to install solar on your own roof, a community solar project could be installed on a large flat roof like a warehouse or some other large entity, and residents or small businesses could subscribe to one of the panels on that installation. So pretty awesome for folks who are in apartments, condos, co-ops, or other types of apartments. So we're looking forward to enhancing people's involvement in that kind of program. We are, as I mentioned, we're talking with folks about community solar, and we've also just hired a data management firm to help us integrate all of the complexities involved in communicating with the utilities, figuring out individual customers' utility bills, all of those communications going back and forth and helping people understand where they are in the scheme of things. How much energy did they save? Are they contributing to reducing greenhouse gas emissions or not? So the firm that we've hired has a lovely dashboard that we'll be able to show you in person in a few months. Takes a while to install all of this software. But the village will also be able to go online and see how you're doing as a village. So this is just a mock-up. You'll be able to see something like this, and I know it's very small. I'll leave this with you. So you'll be able to go and see how the village is doing on a regular basis, and you can report back to your constituents on your progress. Be a pretty neat thing. As I mentioned earlier, we are in Mount Kisco. We're local, and we're here for any of you to ask questions. If you feel that any of your residents or community groups would benefit from a presentation or a demonstration of what we're doing, we'd be happy to do that. Otherwise, we're here in Mount Kisco, and we're happy to serve you.
Thank you very much for coming and for reaching out to us last week. I'm glad we were able to fit you in right away. It's good to get an update. For those folks who don't know or who don't realize the connection, Ossining, before, maybe you were on the board, I guess out of maybe not. Ossining was a charter member of NWEAC, which was the parent of Sustainable Westchester.
So even before Sustainable Westchester.
Yes, and I was on that NWEAC board and then was on part of the steering committee that birthed
I was here.
Sustainable. You were here for you were part of the charter membership. Very good. And so we're very pleased to see all that Sustainable Westchester has provided, and a number of the programs that Ossining's taken part in, including the Energize program, which was sort of the first baby of NWEAC, and then more recently the Solarize Ossining Briarcliff program, and CCA is a big one. And I'm very pleased to hear your increasing engagement with communications firms and the coordination of the data and being able to share the data in a more tangible way for us. Because I will say one of the things we underestimated when we made the decision to join the CCA was the level of communication and education that I wish we had undertaken on a local level. That I think we thought, we forget that everybody doesn't come to our meetings and watch our meetings and hear about all these conversations. And so there was a little concern that this was some sort of a scam, that people had been switched without their permission. And so that we had lengthy discussions about why the program was structured the way that it was. I think you cannot over-communicate, so I'm very glad that to see that that's being expanded. That's an important element, and I'm glad to put a face to Westchester Power that I've not seen before, though I've obviously seen some of your colleagues in the past, so that when folks do have questions about their Con Ed bill, I can very easily tell them to just reach out to you, and you're a real person, and so is Jasmine, and someone will answer the phone or the email. Does anybody have any questions about the Westchester Power or the Sustainable Westchester programs that have been raised today?
Hi, I do actually. Thanks for coming. So I'm very interested in the solar and the community solar, the 2015. So one of the things that I have solar panels, so I'm not sure from an aggregate point of view exactly what I'm saving, because I'm already at the point of savings. But it seems to me that when it comes to solar, every time somebody wants to do it, they look at it individually. Condo complex, the whole community piece now, where it does fit better for condos and maybe small industry, etc. It seems to me that there should be a better way of looking at an entire village and taking entire neighborhoods and sort of saying, all of these, 14 out of these 18 homes would benefit X, Y, and Z. These 14 buildings would benefit these, without having to have people select each time, start a new conversation. Because you can go on Google Maps. I mean, you could just plug in an address and see through an engineering app, like the availability, because they do that at street fairs, right? They can do that, then you can take, And I know there's a student that's working in one of the universities in South Carolina that did entire college campus, roof to roof to roof, and did the analysis. So is there, to your knowledge anyway, if I want to do the entire municipality, and which buildings are not only fit for solar, but would benefit in more of a large scale, rather than communicating to all the different entities, from houses to multi, to industrial, to municipal buildings? I mean, it'll take years to do it as a project.
We did have, in the past couple of years, we have had something called municipal solar, and that's an ongoing discussion that I hope will be completed in the next couple of weeks. So hope to be able to report something more concrete back about municipal buildings. But community solar might benefit those buildings as well. And looking at larger tracts of your village, certainly, that's something that we want to accomplish to help all of us go completely green.
So I'm hearing your answer, but I'm hearing that no, there isn't anybody that can look at an entire set of tracts in a municipality and sort of analyze them wholesale rather than individually.
As if you're asking about the municipal buildings, just the
No.
municipal, oh, the whole,
The call, maybe I'm using the wrong word, the village, a town, a square mile, just a larger tract than these individual pieces.
right, instead of just individual homes or individual buildings. Well, that's partially what the community solar will address, because if you have a large installation, it will serve potentially 200 homes. So depending on the size of that installation, there could be a few hundred people who benefit from that, depending on the megawatts produced.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, comments?
All right, so
Next meeting?
I
Okay.
do have a question.
I guess, just to append that from trustee Levin, I think one of the things that gets in the way of, I think you can look at an entire community and an entire roof shed. In fact, we're starting to do that behind the scenes right now in the village. I think the thing that gets in the way right now may be the limits of technology, where you, it still has to be cost effective to make these separate installations
Right.
as one power producing entity. So what most of the companies out there now, and I think you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but most of them out there now are looking for the large contiguous roof shed, because they want to have one point source of power, either back to the grid or to power that installation itself. So
Right.
that's where we're at now, and you know, ideas like that, I think will maybe come as technology improves.
It's something that needs to be large enough to support multiple residents.
Yeah, and that was one of the kinks with the microgrid effort. So it's, you know, the concepts are there, and the more technology catches up to that, I think the better we'll be.
So we're getting there.
Thank you. Thank you. It's, just going through the brochure is it's really interesting. It's not just solar, but it's also, I'm assuming, by the pictures, there's also wind power that you have that you guys are looking into. So I just had one quick question. You mentioned that the CCA benefit for our village, at least, I'm not sure for the entire communities that are part of this, kind of expires next year. But what happens after that? What happens after?
Great question. The CCA goes on. During this next several-month period, we will be looking at our existing contracts. We'll be looking at renewals. We will go out for bid, and we'll get the next best bid for the village. The original contract was 2 years, and that's because the best rate was provided for a 2-year time period. So we will look at bids again, and whichever one comes in as the most beneficial, that's what we'll report to you as the next.
So if you said this in your introduction, I didn't take note of it. As I'm looking at, and I'll look at the residential rates rather than commercial, because that impacts, the most individuals. And I'm looking at this bar graph, and I can see on two significant, notable occasions, the Con Ed rate was lower, and then two other occasions, it was slightly lower than the Westchester Power Green rate. But in all other months of this, which is looking at, it's going back to May 2016, so it's 1 year from May to May. All the other months, the Con Ed rate was higher. So how does it shake out as far as, did everyone who was a Con Ed customer in April of 2016, their default then became, they still get their bill from Con Ed. A lot of people didn't even notice it changed because Con Ed still delivers the service and delivers the bills and maintains all of the lines. The difference is that Westchester, and I know you know this, I'm just referring to it again for anybody who isn't following along until now. Westchester Power uses the purchase power of so many municipalities who've signed up to be part of the renewable energy bulk purchase. You go to the energy market. It's just like going to the stock market or the food market. You go and you purchase renewable energy at this fixed rate that you went out for bid and you got this best rate for the 2 years. And that's what this is that's reflected.
We identify a supplier who will go to the market.
Okay.
Right.
But that was the fixed rate, was 7.68 per kilowatt hour, and that's
Yes,
fixed
for
for these
green.
2 years. And it looks like it's worked out in our favor for
It
these
has.
past 2 years. And there were a lot of regulations to ensure that it would be favorable or at least comparable for folks. I know that the state was very concerned to make sure that we were protecting the consumer that in the municipalities that chose to opt into this. So can you just confirm for folks? Does it look like we did save money? Because it looks like we did. Have we been saving money
Absolutely.
versus somebody who else said, you know what? I'm not comfortable with this. I'm going to go back to Con Ed and let Con Ed go and buy my power, and I'm not going to be part of this Westchester Power buying program.
Okay, so two answers.
Sure.
The page 3, showing what we've accomplished. That's an analysis that was performed for us by Con Ed at that point in time, and it's been a few months since we had that analysis performed. So at that time, in Con Ed territory, $1.5 million were saved by the folks who were using the CCA, who were
Okay.
participating in the CCA. So when you look at the number of individuals or account holders that represents, it's depending on your usage, maybe $20 or $30, something like that. So not a huge amount of money, but definitely a savings overall. And so that's where we are with that. The second part of that question was when we awarded the contract for the CCA, the supplier had to come in at a cost that was lower than the preceding 12 months. So that was the benchmark, and they did reach that. So we were pretty sure that overall, even though there were fluctuations in the rate, overall, folks would save money.
And it has worked out that way.
Yes, it has.
Okay. And you're hoping that when you go back and find a new supplier and go back out to market for the next whatever period of time, that we'll continue to see a savings while we're also encouraging the renewable energy market by going out for 100% renewable energy for everyone in Austin who's part of this program. And I will just say specifically on here, when you list all of the municipalities, you say Ossining, and that's true, and we are one United Ossining, but it's actually both the village and the town, so folks should
I
know if you
know.
live in the village of Ossining or you live in the unincorporated town, you are part of this group.
I'm aware of that. And when we look at the name Ossining, we always think two.
Uh-huh.
So you are certainly counted in that.
Oh, we know, but we spend an awful lot of time distinguishing the two. So, all right. Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any further questions or comments on this?
Thank you.
Thanks
And
so
I'll
much
leave
for
this
coming.
additional page with you so you can see what our dashboards will look like in the future.
And we'll do our best to make sense of that and keep folks updated. Thanks.
On to the New business, the approval of cabaret license, Boathouse. Whereas pursuant to Chapter 100 and 171 of the Code of the Village of Ossining, the authorized representative of the business, Boathouse, 11 Westerly, has made application to the village clerk as licensing officer for the cabaret licenses for live music, and whereas pursuant to Section 100-3 and 100-5 of the code, village clerk has caused an investigation into said application and referred the same to the Board of Trustees for final approval. Now therefore it is resolved that pursuant to the code, the Board of Trustees hereby approves a cabaret license for Boathouse, 11 Westerly, 2017 calendar as follows. Boathouse, Sunday through Saturday, band and DJ music, 12 p.m. to 2 a.m. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
On the board. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approval of cabaret license for Tierras Tropicalis. Whereas pursuant to Chapter 100 and 171 of the Code of the Village of Ossining, the authorized representative of the business Tierras Tropicalis, 84 Croton Avenue, has made application to the village clerk as licensing officer, cabaret licenses for live music, and whereas pursuant to Section 100-3 and 100-5 of the code, the village clerk has caused an investigation to said application and referred the same to the Board of Trustees for final approval. Now therefore it is resolved that pursuant to the code, the Board of Trustees hereby approves a cabaret license for Tierras Tropicalis, 84 Croton Avenue, for the 2017 calendar as follows. Tierras Tropicalis, Fridays and Saturdays, band and DJ music, 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
And I'll just say, thank you, Corporation Counsel Kahan, for giving us a little more background and filling in some of the blanks that we were unclear on last week when we discussed this at the work session. For anybody who viewed our work session, you know that we did have some questions on why is this happening at this time of year, because cabaret licenses expire at the end of the year, and there have been some, questions along the way of what paperwork was getting done or, needed to be revisited throughout the course of the year. And we understand that the police department did weigh in both of these instances, and you were supportive of us granting these cabaret licenses at the standard time that has become sort of the uniform de facto end time for the village, which is 2 a.m. on the days requested. Okay. Anybody else? Madam Clerk?
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That brings us to new business of the board.
Anyone have any new business? No, move on.
That brings us to visitor recognition. Not seeing anyone. I have a motion to adjourn to executive session for personnel.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll just skip right ahead. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. That was a super quick one. I don't know if anybody had bets on a 45-minute meeting, but I think we did it. And we look forward to seeing folks next week for the work session. We will be back at Village Hall July 12th. This meeting is adjourned to executive session.